Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2. Joining me today is...
A geek for fun.
And the Batman.
What if, if they continue this Flash marketing campaign and we just get, Batman gruff voice, I'm the Flash. Vengeance. Speed Force.
Oh man, okay. So anyway, today we're here for a Geeky Gentleman listing episode where Alfie kind of confusedly gave us the premise of ranking the live-action Batman. Initially he said it and we thought the movies, and then he's like, no, I meant the actors. And I'm like, well, I made my list based off the movies, and we talked about doing it as the movies last week, so we're doing the movies. And I figured the best way to do this, so we don't talk about the same film 3 times, because we might all have the pick in a different point in the list, is I wanted to go through and just do these chronologically the year they came out, and we'll say where we rank that. So I also wanted to just throw in one caveat and say we each get to pick one animated film appearance. So if you want Sub-Zero or Phantasm or whatever, you can throw that in there. It doesn't have to be theatrical release. But yeah. I just thought that'd be a nice way to round out and talk about Batman on film. So if there's no other thoughts, I think now would be a good time if any to start. Any thoughts or anything, or can we start with the first one?
I'm good to jump into it. I guess just overall kind of initial feelings. Because he's kind of become... We always normally look at Batman through the lens of comic book character. But for a lot of casual audiences, Batman is a film character first and foremost. Batman movies are a term people talk about. Or, oh, have you watched the Batmans? Is a casual kind of term. How do you think, judging only from, Batman on film, he as a character has kind of been served overall? Do you think he kind of deserves some kind of prestige, or do you think it's been something that hasn't quite meshed fully? I'm just curious about that when you look at the big picture.
I'd still say that my ideal version of Batman has never been on film. Nothing's even really gotten all that close at this rate. And I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon. Maybe James Gunn will be good to me, but I just don't know. I'm at this point. I think just what I want in a Batman on film is never gonna happen, and I will even go so far as to say that I think some of the ways that he's been portrayed by these movies have negatively affected the character both in the comics and in just public perception. I think the fucking tired-ass Batman take is often perpetuated by these movies, and has even gotten to the point with the most recent one where it's just, used by the movies, and I'm just exhausted, and I'm so tired, guys.
I am much less of a downer, because I think, Alfie, the distinction you're making is an important one, because I do think that there's a Batman of the comics that has been around for a really long time, and then there is this pop culture audience that knows Batman as a film character. And if you go through the history of Batman movies, it's really, really hard to splice exactly what you like out of the comics and pretend like that isn't been greatly influenced by the movies and vice versa. Alfred comes from the movies. What's it called? Fucking the Batcave comes from the movies. The grapnel gun comes from the movies. Even the way, like the specific ways the origin's been portrayed over the years, a lot of that stuff got pulled into the movies later. It's sort of like a Superman thing where like Superman as he exists now is an amalgamation of Superman the old comics, Superman the radio show, Superman the cartoon, Superman the movie, specifically Superman the movie, and that's what gets you the version you see today. And so these characters are kind of independent of each other. So it becomes less like the Batman movies are adapting the Batman comics, and more just like the Batman movies are in conversation with themselves, and they are incidentally paralleling the comics that come out around the same time, but they're very different in terms of like a one-to-one. Like the Marvel Cinematic Universe has a lot of things that they adapt from the comics that are nothing like the comics, but there's no frame of reference for them either. So like the Winter Soldier movie is nothing like the Winter Soldier comic, but you really don't have any, there's no idea of the Winter Soldier that isn't just the Winter Soldier comics. Versus Batman, where so much of that stuff is entwined in the movies that I have a hard time begrudging them for doing their own thing. Like, so much of the mythos is just from that anyway, that it just doesn't bother me anymore, because I know I'm never going to get, like, Ian, I'm never going to get the Batman movie I want, but they keep getting so fucking close that it just keeps me happy.
Steve's into edging, is how I've decided to interpret that.
I mean, fair enough. That's basically where we're at now.
How about you, Alfie? Do you have any other general thoughts on all that, or you just kind of
I guess because I don't want to echo Steve, I think the most interesting thing about Batman is he's really influenced how we film darkness historically, and I think that's very interesting, just from like an artistic point of view. That even going back to the serials and the idea of trying to make the Batcave look dark and black, and making the Batmobile itself look black in a way that contrasted other costumes at the time, because the Superman serials were far more popular, and they were also basically the same color palette, because red and blue when it's in black and white still looks like gray and black, so it looked like Batman's color scheme, so they had to try and find a way to make that visually distinct. And then you get to the 60s and they just say, you know what, fuck even trying with that. Let's just go color, to the point where Batman 66 was all about the color and being filmed on in the same way that Doctor Who, like kind of with the John Pertwee era, changed his visual design to be viewed in color. Batman 66 on a much larger scale was one of the first things that people with color TVs would have been able to watch. And like, well, what a fucking showcase, right? Like, it's built to showcase off like bright colors, and how the blue of the Batcave still looks dark, but it's like reflected really nice. Like, I always wish we'd try what they did for Adam West's like material of like specifically his cape and his cowl in like a new suit with that kind of color variance, because I think if you shot it well, it could make the blue in live action look really cool, like how it does in the comics, where it's got like very deep black shadows still in it. But then you get to 89 and Tim Burton, and like he really masters his craft on those films to shooting darkness, and the Batman Returns is just a gorgeous looking film. And then you get to Nolan, and we try and do like a gritty real version of that, so I almost film like a documentary, but still trying to keep those like shadows that are like really, really harsh. And then you get to Snyder, and he's even more harsh with the shadows, but having a more comic book style Batman and trying to make all that work. And then you get to The Batman, which is like they invent new types of film stock to make the darkness look more like darkness. And it's like, it's just, I don't know, it's just an interesting, like, Batman's always about becoming the shadows, right, in the comics, but in film, he really kind of has become synonymous with, like, camera techniques for filming shadows, and I think that's kind of cool.
Interesting. Alrighty. Well, we'll go ahead and start off with the very first thing that came out with Batman on film, and that is the Batman cereal.
Yay!
With marshmallows and anyway, so unfortunately I don't have much to say about this. In my rankings I put this as NA because I've not actually seen either the Batman cereal or the Batman and Robin cereal, so I can't really comment on them. At most I've seen like little clips and moments. I know the Bat Cave comes from this initially, and that's kind of cool, but yeah, I don't have a ton to say. I don't have much input on this one.
I don't know how you're counting them, because I'm not counting the Snyder movies, and I'm not counting the theatrically or direct-to-DVD released animated movies. I'm just exclusively doing live-action movies that are about Batman.
So I counted both Batman v Superman and Justice League because he is a main featured character in a live action film.
Oh, so then they're at the bottom for me, so it doesn't even matter. Cool. So in that ranking, with your ranking, then that would make that 13 movies total, if I'm right.
Yes.
So I have the Batman serial and Batman and Robin serial as 10 and 9 respectively. I don't dislike them. They're just kind of dull by modern standards because they are a serial. So like if you sit down and watch the first one, it's just like 4 hours back to back of like 15-minute bits of Batman and Robin doing things. But from a historical perspective, these are really, really cool and really well made. They're designed to be something that you'd watch in front of your movie in lieu of trailers before your feature presentation starts. And so for a general audience back in the day, there would be kids who would go to the movie theater every Saturday, not actually watch a movie, and just spend an hour watching serials that were played in front of the movies back to back to back. And the Superman serial and the Batman serials around the time were really popular for that exact reason. And the Batman ones are the reason that the Batman 66 show exists, because the first serial got re-released in the early 60s, and it did so well 20 years after it had come out that they greenlit not only the Batman TV show, but agreed to let Adam West do the Batman movie simultaneously, because that was not supposed to happen either. They wanted to do a Batman movie and the Batman first season together, and they wouldn't let him. And then the Batman serials were doing so well that they let the show happen, and then they let the movie come out pretty close to the first season. But the Batman serial is where we get the Bat Cave, where they call literally the Bat's Cave in the first one. But it's also where we get comic book Alfred from, because in the comics, Alfred doesn't show up until 1943, and he's designed to be from the serials. So he shows up in the serial, he's a British dude who's lean and a mustache, and he's basically fully formed from the beginning. And they incorporate him into the comics, but they do him differently. And basically immediately, the editors at DC are like, no, you can't do your own take on Alfred. Everyone likes the serial version of Alfred, so you have to do that. So they change a story later that gives him a physical transformation that makes him like the serials from the live-action serial Alfred. So that's really interesting. And so we wouldn't have Alfred or the Batcave without that, and such a major part of the mythos, so it's hard to ignore that. The first serial is not great. It's kind of boring. It's really racist. Well, not really racist, but it's kind of racist.
Oh, good.
The second serial is a lot better. The first one is definitely trying to like figure itself out, and the guy who plays Batman in the first one, what the fuck's his name? Lewis Wilson. He's not great, and his costume is kind of trash. But they improve on it a lot by 1949 when the second serial comes out and Robert Lowery takes over. That set of serials was not the one that inspired the 66 TV show, but it might as well have. The 49 serial is basically Batman 66 15 years early. So I like the second one a lot, but the first one's kind of boring.
Okay. Alfie, any thoughts on the serials beyond the
No,
film side of things?
I'm the same side as you, Ian. I haven't seen them, so I'm NA.
Okay, all right. I figured that part would be pretty quick, but thanks, Steve, for all the lovely information. All right, so then we're gonna up to the film connected to the Adam West television series Batman 1966. I'll start off on this one. This is number 3 for me. I like this one a lot, man. Like, I've not seen it a ton of times, probably only like twice, but just the vibe of the Adam West Batman and the fun of it is something that I don't think is appreciated enough. Like, it spent a lot of time getting just made fun of as if it was trying to be serious, and I think that makes it even kind of funnier that, like, people didn't get that it was a joke. So, I don't know, it's just a good fucking time, you know, there's memes from this. Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb, and fucking bat shark repellent have really stood the test of time. to the point where they still get like referenced in stuff constantly, like modern Batman stuff too. Pretty sure there was a Harley Quinn episode where she's trying to get rid of a bomb like that. There's a moment.
Oh, dude, it was
in
literally
Arkham...
last week. Batman number 900 had a Batman 66 reference where literally Adam West showed up and gave him shark repellent.
Yeah, it's fucking great. And then what was it? Fucking Arkham City had the moment where you're fucking paddling across the Iceberg Lounge and a shark lunges out of the water and you gotta beat the shit out of it. It's a deeper cut, but it's still a reference to Batman 1966. And like this is just a cool movie in that like it's got like the villain team up thing, which I'm probably wrong, but has that been done in a superhero movie since, where we've got like multiple, like as in more than two villains teaming up that are established from like their own independent stories and not just introduced in that same movie? Like there's probably been one, but goddamn, I'm having a real hard time thinking of it. Anything?
I think in
pre-established.
no.
Like, you could maybe make an argument for, like, what, like Age of Ultron, because you got, like, Wanda and Pietro and Ultron
Baron
as a
Strucker,
team.
too.
Yeah, dude. Until he dies 5 minutes in the movie. But, like, they're all pretty much, technically, the Maximoff twins are established earlier, but just in a pre-credit scene. So, like, that's kind of, it's just like a tri-villain thing in that. And two of them break off. Like, Batman 66 did the villain team-up movie, and all of these characters had been established in their own episodes of the series by that point, which is awesome. You know? There's just so much cool stuff, and the way that that the movie, like, flexed for the time is also pretty damn awesome. Because what they did, which I think was pretty smart, is they used the budget of the film to help improve the show too. So they did stuff that they spent the budget on the film on stuff that they could then use later for the series. Prior to the film, Batman doesn't have a helicopter. After the film, Batman has a fucking helicopter.
That's a little... That part's a little sticky, though, because that's what they said they did. And then a majority of the things that they commissioned for the movie were things that they were not actually able to use on the show more than, like, once or with stock footage. So, like, the stuff like the Bat boat and the Bat copter, they show up in the show, but in a very limited capacity, and most of the time they're just using shots from the movie.
I mean, fair, but at the same time, when you're talking about 60s audiences that, you know, you're not seeing this multiple times, you're only able to recall what you can recall from the previous
I know.
week.
I'm just saying they didn't use the movie's budget to commission things for the show. They just kept using the things from the movie that already existed.
No, I get you, but again, I think that it's... I think you can still call it that. They didn't get to use it as extensively in the show as you might have hoped, but they still got to use the footage and cut back and forth to it. I think that should count. I'd give it to them. It's not like fucking Dragon Ball GT reusing the same like loop of animation 5 times in one fight scene. So, like, the Batcopter shows up this week. You don't see it again for 3 more weeks. I think that's pretty good.
My feelings with this movie are similar to Ian, is like I really do enjoy it. The only reason it's not higher for me, it's at 6 for me. I guess just 1966 should be at 6, I guess. The reason it's not higher that holds it back is I love it a lot, but I still think it's weaker than the show. There are many episodes of the show that I would rather put on than the movie. It just feels like a longer, worsely paced, but with a higher like production value version of the show. And for what I like of the show, I'd rather just watch an episode 9 times out of 10. And I think that's a pretty big detriment, but everything that's here is so good that I still really, really enjoy it. And it's not the fact that I think it itself is bad, it's just I like the other things hired at it more. As just like individual pieces of media if I'm going to put it on. If I want Batman 66 content, I'm not going to go to the movie majority of the time. I will just go to an episode, but there are still such good moments in this, like the whole opening with the Riddler, leading with the Riddlers, and then you have the, I forget what it is exactly, but like what weighs 15 pounds in a tree and is deadly. It's like a squirrel with a machine gun. My God, Robin, you've got it. Like just the ability to coldly and calmly solve in less than 2 seconds the most ridiculous riddle impossible to solve known to man, and then moving on, not letting that joke hang, just going to the next one, is like, that's why Adam West is Batman. that's why he's fucking Batman, because there has been no one specifically for his time period and the comics of that time who was literally ripped off the page. Exactly the same costume, exactly the same mannerisms, exactly the same devotion to justice and stopping crime, and that little bit of charm and smoothness that you can buy. Man, not only is this guy good at his job, he's like easily good at his job. It's like being Batman comes so fucking naturally to him that it's always a joy to watch. So it's a really good time.
One other thing you reminded me of, there's a joke, I'm pretty sure it's from the movie and not the show, but there's a joke where you see, like, what are the cops doing, and it cuts to them and they're playing a board game called Tiddlywinks, which was like an expression at the time basically to like twiddle your thumbs. So it's just like some smarter jokes in there too that I think is just underappreciated about the series and the movie as a companion piece. So I like this movie a lot. It's fun.
Okie dokie, shall we go to the next
Steve
one?
hasn't
Steve hasn't talked about it. Oh dear.
Steve, where do you rank Batman 66?
I'm with Alfie. It's actually my number 6 as well.
Hey.
I like it a lot for very much the same reason, which was I just like the show better. I think the show is more entertaining, and I think the fact that you have 2-parters to break up the action just plays better pace-wise than having like an hour-and-a-half movie that does all the same things. I also don't love Lee Merriweather as Catwoman compared to Julie Newmar and Eartha Kitt. She's not bad. She's good in the role, and then there are certain parts of it where like it's indistinguishable. But in general, I like the other two better. It's a very good movie. I enjoy it a lot. It's just it's exactly what Alfie said, which is if I'm in the mood to watch Adam West play Batman, I'll just watch the show instead of the movie.
Fair. All right. Well, let's go ahead and go on. Then the next one is what? Batman 89? Yep, Batman 89. Does anyone else? I don't want to start again. Someone else start.
I can go first.
Go, do.
All right, I love this movie. This is my number 3. This is one of those that I have been very lukewarm on for most of my life, but the older I get, the more I learn to appreciate this movie. It's part of what I said earlier, which is at a certain point you do kind of have to diverge the timelines between comic book Batman and movie Batman. Batman the movie, or Batman 89, is made from the perspective of Tim Burton saying, I want to do the show, but in my style. It's not him trying to adapt the comics really at all, aside from things that are brought on from other people who have read the comics that are in the script he happens to be shooting. He says he's read The Killing Joke. I don't fucking believe him. I don't think that man's picked up a comic book in his life, which is
he
totally
straight up says
fine.
he has not.
I don't believe any of that shit. But so all of the Batman comic book stuff in this movie is completely incidental. But this is like when he did Dark Shadows, right? Like this is the kind of guy who takes a premise and feels like he can twist it to his vision. And I think for that part, this is the perfect balance between Tim Burton and Batman. Visually, this is one of the most gorgeous comic book movies ever put to screen. It's one of the most gorgeous movies of the 80s, period. It's just such a beautiful movie. The fact that he's going back and doing old school German expressionism to get the shadows in the city to look the way it does, it's unrivaled in that way. And it's a movie that's so smart about how it stages iconic images where like how the bat signal shines, the way the bat wing flies up, which also this is where we get the bat wing, where the bat wing flies up and makes the bat symbol with the moon, the way the Joker's elongated gun is filmed. Jack Nicholson, here's the other thing, is I think we are underserved that we are so young because we don't realize who Jack Nicholson is for our entire lives. Since I've been going back and watching all of the AFI movies, I've been watching a bunch of Jack Nicholson movies before the 80s. And I finally understand why it was so fucking insane to cast Jack Nicholson as the Joker at this point. And I finally appreciate why watching him do this is the coolest thing ever. Because if you go back in time and watch all of those other fucking movies that he was in for 20 years before he was the Joker, this is a transcendent performance. It's insane the things they get this man to do. And it's the same with Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton kills it as Batman. He's fantastic. He's on my list of ranked Batman, which I can talk about at the end. He's my 4th favorite Batman. He's so fucking good at this movie. I never want to see him come back. The fact that the Flash movie decided that Michael Keaton was the draw and not Michael Keaton directed by Tim Burton shows you how much they lost the plot for this movie, but it's great. I fucking love it. It's such a gorgeous movie to look at. It's so bare bones. It's all atmosphere. It's entirely a mood piece, and I think that makes it work.
Well, Steve has been gushing about this film a lot, and I don't know how Ian will feel, but this is my number 11. Ooh. Batman 89 sucks. This is a boring film. I have like nothing good to say about this. Michael Keaton, I have never bought as Batman. His cowl doesn't even fit him in this movie. He looks like a cosplayer that's like a B-tier cosplayer. And like, I don't even mean that in the sense of like the film itself with the movie budget or whatever. That's fine, whatever. But like, he in the Batsuit, never believable. The people who were right about complaining about his casting, they were right. They were right. Mr. Mom shouldn't have been Batman. He just doesn't have any presence to him. All the cool shots of him like moving his cape and walking through are by other people. It's not Michael Keaton himself doing it. They hired other people to do those movements and stuff because Michael Keaton himself couldn't even do that part. I'm coming off really harsh here. I don't want to be like that. It's just
go off, King.
the reason why is like you brought up, Steve, a really good point here where like the filmmakers of The Flash seem to have taken the lesson that they brought Michael Keaton instead of Michael Keaton directed by Tim Burton. And I don't think that as missing the point. I think that exposes the flaws far more. I think he was always like that. Tim Burton was just so stylish, and like you said, this movie is gorgeous looking. It's not quite as good looking as Batman Returns, not by a long shot. I think that is a massive step up visually from every front, and that's understandable because this was kind of like a miracle to get made, and Tim Burton had never been on a film of this scale before, and there was tons of different, like, just a lot of behind the scenes drama with this one. So I can understand it being more compromised, but this movie's screenplay is really kind of shoddy, and Jack Nicholson can only save so much with the dialogue, and most of his is improv anyway, just because he's Jack fucko Nicholson, you know, and he can just do that. So all the best lines of the movie go to him, and everything else that isn't Jack Nicholson's Joker is like watching paint dry. Like there's nothing for me to get invested with this version of Bruce. There's nothing for me to get invested with Vicky or any of the other characters with Gordon. This is just a very lifeless, boring version of Gotham. And I'm kind of amazed that this became an inspiration and a springboard for hundreds of more interesting versions of Gotham that love this movie and were inspired by this movie or were contracted by this movie or what have you, even the sequel. But the actual Batman 89 film itself, every time I try and go back to it, I try and look at it from your perspective, Steve. I try to grasp onto something it is, and maybe it is the age thing. Maybe this will change. I'm just younger than you, so I'm at the place you are where you were lukewarm on it. But just at the moment, man, I can't with this film.
You need to watch it with me. It's like when we watched Ben Affleck Daredevil. You need to watch it
Like
with me,
that's
and you'll get
fun,
it.
though,
Movie fucking
Steve.
rules.
But that movie's so. If Batman '89 started playing fucking Linkin Park and Evanescence,
Yes!
I would actually be way more interesting. But it doesn't, Steve. It doesn't.
All right, I'll cut in here. I have Batman '89 at number 7 on my list. I don't like hate it. I also don't really like care for it that much. It's got great visuals. I do love the just gothic, moody atmosphere of it is really cool. And again, there's some really good jokes and moments in it. Not everything about what Jack Nicholson is doing really hits for me, but he's got enough good ones that kind of work. And again, you get some fun Joker antics, and I think Nicholson's outfit is nice and expressive, and I like that. I'm still the Jack Nicholson thing that will always live with me is the I'm glad you did, and it's not because that scene's particularly great. I mean, it's good, but it's because years ago, after Heath Ledger died, before Dark Knight even came out, I remember seeing a YouTube video someone made of Jack Nicholson's reaction to Heath Ledger's death. I'm glad you did. And that's just permanently seared in my brain. Otherwise, I don't know. This movie's just okay to me. I don't love it. I don't give a shit that Tim Burton likes the Batman show more than the comics. I feel like it was fucking 1989, so you're talking 20 plus years since the show was popular. Maybe you should have been going with the comics that were actually popular at the time and taking some more of the tone from that. Because, goddammit, that's just more interesting than Tim Burton's vision of the television series, that seems to take all of the style of humor out and replace it with Tim Burton style humor. I don't know, I don't buy that fucking argument, and I don't think that's a good excuse for writing, kind of a bad script. It's just weird to me that, it's a mystery that Bruce Wayne's parents died. I don't... That's a plot point in this movie that's always gonna, make me go, wait, what? So he's a rich recluse, and the reporter has to do some digging to find out that the Waynes died, and I'm like, everything else has hyped it up as this absolute tragedy that marred the soul of Gotham, and for this movie to stand alone as, oh yeah, by the way, the Waynes died 20 years ago, it never sat well with me. But then okay, the one that no amount of argument will ever let this one slide for me. The fucking Batwing coming down and shooting at Jack Nicholson Joker in the middle of the street, and Jack Nicholson Joker pulls out a revolver with a really long barrel on it and shoots down a fucking plane. I'm sorry, that's not cool. That's just stupid.
Funny though. It's so funny. He pulls a giant gun from his pants and fires it and shoots down Batman. It's so funny.
I literally 2-year-olds with action figures to me, and not in a good way. Never liked that scene. Always stupid. Always underwhelming. Kind of hilarious that it's quasi-referenced in The Dark Knight, but done better. But that's neither here nor there. So yeah, not a huge fan of Batman '89, but again, it does have some shit that is just fucking cool. The fact that Prince did the soundtrack is pretty fucking dope. Not only do you have the score by Danny Elfman, but Prince as the artist for the soundtrack is pretty fucking cool. I like Party Man. I feel like that is an underappreciated song by Prince for the Joker. It's kind of weird to me that we have all these we had a whole fucking era of Joker tribute videos on YouTube and no one fucking used Party Man. That seems a little wrong. I think that's about the long and short of what I got. Not the biggest fan. Not
Aside
the
from
biggest
watching
gripe.
it with Steve, to kind of Ian's point that he just made about the music from Prince and Alfman, the only other version of this film I'm interested in rewatching or watching for the first time is someone made a silent movie edit of it, but not fully silent movie because it kept the score. And like the insert songs, but none of the dialogue, and like edited in a way where you don't need that. And I'm like, okay, maybe that might be made this more tolerable if I could just have it like as a music video. But yeah, that's basically the end of it.
Yeah, okay. So we'll go on and we'll do Batman Returns. Steve started last time, Alfie, you start this time.
So this one's a bit higher for me because this one's number 8. I think this one is where some of the kinks kind of got worked out. Instead of just having Jack Nicholson as interesting to watch on screen, now you've got fucking Danny DeVito, Michelle Pfeiffer, and fucking I can't believe it. How may I forget? Christopher Walken. Yeah, there you go. Bruce Wayne, why are you dressed up as Batman?
Greatest line of dialogue ever heard.
I so just for that line alone, I think it gets such good rankings over 89. But Returns is the one where I feel like even though I have the same story problems, I still don't find Keaton as Batman. He's in a much better suit this time. They actually had the money to, like, fit it, which is like, you think that would have been the first point of thing, but whatever. The design of it is very nice. If it's not what I'd want in a Batman suit, but it's perfect for Tim Burton Batman, just as a visual that exists. I do think that is a really cool look. Highlighting the yellow oval as the sole pop of color with the belt, I think is a really nice touch, and it's a strong visual. And that's kind of the key thing that sticks out for me from this entire film. It's as much as 89 is about like the vibes and the visuals, and it's not really about the screenplay. This one is entirely like, all right, artist brain just has to kick in and just admire the craftsmanship here. Because I think this film, like Batman in the snow, like come on, it always looks so cool. So yeah, I don't have much to say on it aside from Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman jump-started an entire fetish, and good for her for that. It's the best she's ever looked in anything ever, for some reason. But she's also the best character in the film, and her take on Catwoman is completely different from any other take of Catwoman. But in isolation, with this just being on film, I think makes her a more compelling character, and one that you can sympathize with, and one by the end of her story you actually do feel for her, and just how fucking put through the ringer this poor woman has been, and she still keeps kicking and fighting. Like I do like that quite a lot. I like her performance as Selena. I think she does good. So that and the visuals and Danny DeVito just being fucking insane. Let's be like a fever trip, but like, a fever trip I don't mind having now and again. Like this one's an all right one. And again, just purely carried on the backs of that.
That's fair. I got Returns at number 9 on my list. I'm not much of a fan of this movie. I don't know. Between like Batman just Indiana Jones level fucking murdering dudes in the beginning of this movie is always not sat right with me. And again, I don't really care for a lot of the script decisions here. One thing about just like this whole universe of Batman movies between Burton and Schumacher is I like vehemently dislike the fact that they've done such wild takes on the characters to like completely alter in perpetuity people's perceptions of the characters. So like example is Catwoman being resurrected by cats. Like in the public perception thanks to this movie and then later the Halle Berry Catwoman movie, that's like people just think that's like a part of her character that she literally has 9 lives. It's like something that people think has happened as like non-comic fans, and I encounter it from time to time. It's like it's just a little annoying. Same thing with like the penguin in this movie, where it's like he's mutated from birth and lived in the sewers and like commands armies of penguins, right? No, never. I don't know why that's a thing in this, but it is. So I've never really liked like that those bold takes, in and of themselves, have kind of always like bugged me a bit. With this movie, I'm a little more forgiving of it than I am with other films in the franchise, just because I don't really give a shit about the Penguin, and Catwoman's kind of just like to me. But then, I don't know. The Penguin's big plan is to strap a bunch of fucking rockets to the backs of penguins and have them blow up Gotham, and I'm like, that's a dumb plan. I just don't think it's cool or interesting or even like necessarily like weird in a cool way. I think it's just a dumb plan. Like, I'd believe it if you told me that Tim Burton had an early version of like a fucking chat GPT AI and he was just like, Penguin plot, Batman evil villain scheme. And it's just fucking what it spit out. He's like, I can make that look cool on film because I'm Tim Burton. I'm an artist. I went kind of my George Lucas voice there. I don't know what Tim Burton sounds like. He probably doesn't talk. Tim Burton's being confirmed. That's all I got. Not a huge fan of this one. It does look pretty. That's kind of cool. I agree. I like the upgrade to Batman's suit. I think the funniest fucking thing about this whole movie is it's so subtle. Is Christopher Walken's character has a son in this movie, and the actor has like 2 fucking lines. But he really went for it. His 2 fucking lines, he does a really bad Christopher Walken impression. And I respect him so much. It's so fucking funny every time. Dad, like, where are we going?
I forgot about that.
It's great.
It's so subtle, but it's so good.
It's really good. It's like Hereditary, the accent.
Well, like, you know what's really funny about it is like late 2000s Christopher Walken did a SNL host bit, and they do a sketch with Christopher Walken's family reunion, and fucking all of them show up, and they're all like, it's every SNL cast member, and they're all talking like Christopher Walken. And the best joke of the entire fucking bit is when they go, "Yes, Christopher, meet Agonye. He's our foreign exchange student from Africa." And fucking Kenan Thompson comes on. He's like, "I am enjoying being in America so much and learning to talk English like all of you." It's so fucking funny. Oh. Anyway, yeah, that's my things on Batman Returns. Okay, Steve, tell us why we're wrong and why it's secretly your number 1 pick.
I have this one just slightly below Batman, which Batman's at number 3. This is at number 5. I love this movie too. This is one of those films that in the last 10 years or so, independently of the Twitter sphere of people talking about things on Twitter that are always wrong, has had a reevaluation and a resurgence. It's become a really popular movie to talk about from like a film studies perspective, which is interesting. And it's something I never got for a really, really long time. And like 89, the older I got, the more I watched it, the more I'm like, you know, this is maybe Tim Burton's magnum opus. This is the movie Tim Burton got to make because Batman was a success, so they wouldn't say no to him. So he made the most Tim Burton movie Tim Burton could Tim Burton. And it's entirely his vision all the way through, and that leads to some stuff that I don't love as much, but it is narratively a way more complex movie. Like, there are actual themes and ideas that this movie is about that interlock with different characters. The iconic visuals most people remember of Keaton, a majority of them are from this movie, which I think gets forgotten a lot. Specifically the one where he's just sitting in his chair brooding, and then the bat signal reflects into his living room, and so he just stands up and looks at it. Like, that shot is so fucking good, but it's from this
I just
movie.
like to think about what the fuck if someone else was in there.
Well, I just love the idea that he just sits alone in the dark waiting for the bat signal to hit like that. It's so funny. I love the idea that, like, maybe he just got reflector panels, so no matter what window he's in, the bat signal will reflect into it for him. I love this movie. I think this one's really, really good. Again, this is more of Tim Burton just doing his own thing. But I think that works for it here. The only reason I put it slightly below 89 is I think the fact that he's toned himself down a little bit gives the first one a little bit more of like a wide-ranging appeal. It's an action movie, it's a funny movie, it's a kids movie, it's an adults movie. There's a lot happening there. It's a much easier thing to digest versus Batman Returns, where I think you do really have to like sit down and put yourself in the mood for it to watch it, because it can be very off-putting, but it's off-putting on purpose, and so you just kind of have to be in the right headspace to watch it. So it makes it a less rewatchable movie, but I think it is, in a lot of ways, it's a much better movie than 89. It's just not one that I immediately go to watch if I'm just trying to watch Batman.
Alrighty. Are we all done with Returns? We're ready to go on to the next one?
Yep.
Okay, Batman Forever. I'll start again. I got this one at number 6. There's things I like about it. There's things I don't like. Again, I'm annoyed that this universe just puts people's heads in a certain place. So, like, the one from this that actively annoys me is, so the Riddler has mind control powers, right? No, that's just some fucking shit that got made up for this movie. And so that annoys me. But at the same time, I like a lot of other stuff about this. This is one that's just a fucking twisted web of behind-the-scenes drama and shit that's, like, almost arguably... Nah, I think not even arguably. I think it is objectively more fascinating the more you know about the behind-the-scenes of this movie than what you know about than the movie itself. But I don't know. It's kind of made the movie more likable for me in that way. Jim Carrey as the Riddler is just insane. He's clearly just wanted to play the Joker, but they already gave that role to Nicholson, so he's just doing the best he can with what he's got. But I don't know. I kind of like it. Do you like my outfit? I wear it when I'm jogging. So many fucking great, cheesy, over-the-top dialogue in this. Don't really care for Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, except for his first scene. Because there's the interesting behind-the-scenes thing of this is that Two-Face, Tommy Lee Jones was cast to be Two-Face and be like the serious villain, and Jim Carrey was cast to be Riddler and be like the corny one. And then Tommy Lee Jones didn't want to get upstage, so he started hamming up his performance more and more and more to like try to keep up or top Carrey. But I think that first scene with Two-Face as Tommy Lee Jones, or Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, was filmed before he really got wind of just how far Carrey was going to go and started going on his own thing. Because he's got like this whole fucking great monologue with the coin flip, and it's like early CGI, and it looks terrible, but it's like shiny and beautiful, and I kind of love it. He's just got this whole fucking monologue to this security guard, and it's like legitimately intimidating. It might be like one of the best Two-Face scenes in anything ever. Not that that's like hard to do, but like it's probably in the top 10. You can include like comic book stuff too. I don't know. I like that first scene with Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face a lot. The end of this movie, literally the very end, where Riddler says he knows the identity of Batman and he's going to tell everyone, and then they get Dr. Burton to come down, and it's a guy that fucking looks like Tim Burton, and he's got a big bow tie that's all like black and white pinstripes. It's a really funny gag to me. And ultimately, this is the one where Steve might just come through the internet and kill me. I think I like Joel Schumacher's visual style and approach to the Batman movies than I do Tim Burton's.
Interesting.
I don't know, man. Like, it's weird and it's over the top and stuff, but it's just so, like, fun. Because, you know, Tim Burton was trying to do his artiste thing, and the studio really wasn't interested in that. They just wanted a fucking cash cow that they could use to sell toys. And Joel Schumacher, he kind of got it and just kind of went with it. And so this movie, and definitely the follow-up, is just this fucking toy commercial of, you know, Titanic proportions. and everything's like neon and bright and fun, and I kind of fucking dig it. I don't know, the visual style for these two films just hits for me in a way that I find more appealing for what they are than I do for Burton's movies. Because Burton's like almost a victim of his own success in that his visuals hit so well for me that it makes me notice and more disappointed in the faults of the stories on film than Schumacher's. Schumacher's visuals match the tone of the story he's telling, you know, and I really appreciate that about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to basically agree with Ian completely. I also prefer Schumacher's visuals to Burton's. They're so big. It feels like this is the one Batman universe where like they could fight on a giant typewriter. And that's like really important to me. Like I like that exists. Like even more than the 60s show, and even more than like this is the one where you really feel like it's still shot on stages, but that little advancement of early CGI for specifically the background work and getting to start this movie by flying over the not Empire State Building. No, sorry, not the not Statue of Liberty, I should say. And that whole sequence is just fantastic. For me, Batman Forever is pretty high. This is my number 4.
Oh, okay.
I'm very nostalgic for Batman Forever. This was the first Batman movie I ever watched. I had this on VHS, and I had the BTS episodes with the Robin episodes. So I just
Robin's Reckoning!
Yeah, I had Robin's Reckoning, and I had Batman Forever, and that was my introduction to Batman. So a lot of this, I don't know how much of speaking is just this informed my idea of what Batman is. But like every time I go back to Kilmer, man, he's the guy that like feels the most like, oh, I read this Batman in a comic. Like I read this guy and his kind of weird way of like, you look at his dialogue and how he's written, he doesn't talk like a normal human being. He doesn't speak with like any of like the dialogue of like the 90s, or he's like interesting, excessive, but interesting. Like that's Batman, man. He talks like Batman. His voice is like that perfect kind of. It's not quite Conroy. It's not quite like gravitas, but it's there. It's closer to it. He looks great in the suit. His Bruce Wayne looks great. Like he's always so smooth, but he's clearly still. And this is what I've been missing with Keaton. He's the first Batman that I feel on screen you actually get. This guy's a little fucked up. This guy's not all that. This guy's putting on this like disguise to be a normal human being because he can't quite put that. And I know a lot of people shit on his performance at the time because they were like, oh, he's like wooden, he's stoic, everyone else is so loud to him. And I think they always try to get the balance of really loud villains with very stoic Batman. And Batman Forever, I think, is where they really figured out like this is the ratio to it, because he's still compelling and he still feels competent. He still has his little goofy moments. He's still got that smile gif when he's like, yeah, hell yeah, I could have fucked Chase Meridian, but now Bruce Wayne gets to fuck Chase Meridian. You know, like there's the shit like that. Like he's got his goofy moments, but like I really feel like this guy is a Denny O'Neil Batman that popped on the stage. I can see him with a Cassandra Cain. I can see him with a Tim. I can see him with a Jason. Like he feels the closest to me like Batman, and that for the whole movie as well is it's goofy. Yes, it's like the ultimate 5-year-old like film with as many toys as possible, but like it's just a fun time. Batman Forever isn't boring, and like I really give it a lot of credit for that. And I always
just like kudos to it for having the balls to put Robin in the fucking movie.
Hell yeah, finally. The biggest fucking problem with it is the script clearly wants him to be like 14.
Yeah.
And Chris O'Donnell is certainly not. So and he is good for what he's given, right? But like that, one of the biggest, I think Batman Forever would have been looked on a lot more favorably if they had got an age appropriate, like you don't have to go all the way to kid, but like early teen, like find a Tom Holland of that era, right? Like someone who looks really young, and all of those scenes that are kind of like laughable when Alfred's like, he's just a boy, Masterverse, and he looks clearly like he's got a fucking deposit on his house or some shit. Like, why is this guy even needing a foster parent? He's clearly like already established, like fully grown adult man. But all of the problems with that, and casting Robin more appropriately, and getting Two-Face to actually try.
I mean, he tried. He just did not want to do this
Yeah.
the thing that the director wanted him to do.
Yeah.
It's funny, like, again, the behind-the-scenes stuff. The fact that, like, Val Kilmer never liked working with Joel Schumacher was pretty fucking funny. So, you got Val Kilmer and Tommy Lee Jones just wanting to do their own fucking thing on this movie set. Is so goddamn funny to me. I'm just imagining the fucking chaos of trying to direct all that shit, and it's not like the luxury of you can just fire them, because these are like guys with star power, especially at the time, because Forever's 95. Val Kilmer was a fucking like star at this point in time. He would have just come off the Doors biopic with Oliver Stone. He was fucking everywhere back in the mid to early to mid 90s. So this was like a huge get for, oh, Keaton's not coming back. We're gonna go with fucking Val Kilmer. Holy shit. It's like the butting heads on set is just fucking fascinating about this movie. It's hilarious but fascinating. Steve, what do you think of where you got Forever at?
I don't like this one very much. This one's my number 8. This is one where I feel like all of the chaos of the behind the scenes just yields a product that is going in way too many different directions for it to feel like it's got a cohesive vision behind it. Tommy Lee Jones has never acted more insane than this, except in maybe Under Siege with Steven Seagal, which is also a really fucking funny Tommy Lee Jones movie. But watching him and Carrie go off of each other is maybe the highlight. Like the other movies, Jim Carrey's talked about specifically how he wanted to do something like Frank Gorshin because he grew up on the 60s show. And so much of this movie, again, is very much like Burton. They want to go back and capture the silliness of the 60s. Obviously, this is number 1 because Nicole Kidman, Dr. Chase Meridian, holy shit. Just woman has never looked more attractive in cinema than Chase Meridian in this movie. Jesus fucking Christ. The amount of horny on her character posters are just ungodly, and I love it so much. But
Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta interrupt real quick, okay?
yeah.
I'm sorry. Fucking Kiss by a Rose, man. Like,
I
I'm
know.
sorry.
So good.
Yeah, no.
So good.
There's just a lot of things about this movie that I feel like hold it back from being a fun watching experience because it just doesn't come together. The Robin stuff, I love Robin, man. I've always wanted Robin in a movie, and Chris O'Donnell just could not do it. All the dynamic between him and Val Kilmer just does not fucking work. Buried in this movie, a lot of it was edited away, is a story about Bruce Wayne repressing his memories about his parents' death. And there is some behind-the-scenes stuff about how he was going to hallucinate a giant bat.
That fucking deleted scene looks so sick, though.
That was supposed to be taken like straight from Dark Knight Returns, too, where Batman strips down and walks into the cave and sees the giant bat flying at him. So, like, that kind of stuff, I feel like if Joel Schumacher got his way and was able to edit this movie the way he wanted to, he probably would have been higher on my list. But this and Batman and Robin feel way too focus grouped to me. They feel like a movie that is, I need 60% this, 20% this, 10% this, 2% this, and shove it together, and that's this movie. And the incremental percentages of it that are good are good, but as a whole, it's just kind of a mess. And the visuals that Schumacher does for Gotham are good for what he's trying to do. It's just when nothing else is kind of like in service to them, the way Burton's idea of Gotham was in service to his version of the characters, it doesn't stay memorable for me. Like, I can vividly recall scenes of Batman Returns and Batman 89 in my mind with a purpose to where they were in that movie. With Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, no matter how many times I watch these movies, everything just kind of washes over me. It's too much sugar, basically. So I don't love this one. I've got this on my list as number 8.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, let's go ahead and go on to Batman and Robin. And Steve, I believe it's your turn to start us off again.
I'm just gonna repeat most of what I said there. Batman and Robin is not a good movie. I will say, George Clooney Batman is really good. I love the idea of George Clooney as Batman. I like him a lot more than Val Kilmer. George Clooney, when he got this part, knew exactly what it was, which is he was on General Hospital. This is his big movie break. Everyone's gonna love him, and he'll have the star power to do one artsy movie and one studio rom-com. And he just kept up the tradition of one for me, one for you, for his whole career after this. George Clooney was the James Tinian of his day, who entirely thought of this as a business proposition. So he did not do very much here. But in an ideal world, George Clooney is actually a very good candidate for Batman, particularly at this point in his career. And I think him and Chris O'Donnell have way more chemistry with each other than him and Val Kilmer. Movie's absolutely a mess. It's a complete shit show. It's really funny. It's trying to do 66 in the most insane degrees possible, and it's just not as funny. Uma Thurman Poison Ivy's a lot of fun. They wanted to shove Bane into this because of what was going on in the comics, and that did not work out super well. And it, again, poisoned people's ideas of who Bane was for a long, long time, even in the comics. So I don't love this one either. This one is my number 11.
Oh, wow, that's pretty low. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't love this one as much. This one comes at number 8 for me. It's got things about it I like. This is the best Batman movie to just sit with a group of friends and just fucking laugh at. Because that's what I did. That's how I really found to enjoy this movie, is I just watched it with some friends, and we started counting all the puns that fucking Mr. Freeze makes, and it's just a really good movie to point and laugh at. It's it's insane. It's fucking Power Rangers shit with surfing through the sky and stuff. I don't know why the 90s made that such a thing of surfing in the sky, but it's everywhere, man. And so I just get a kick out of watching it and just the absurdity of it. Man, there's a fucking car chase down a statue's arm and across a highway. I can't hate this movie. It's given me too many gifts. It gave me a Bat credit card, and fans have been shitty about it for fucking decades, and that just makes me like it more. What else? Your point about George Clooney being a potentially really good Batman, just not in this, I would very much agree with. At that point in his career, I think he could have played a much more serious, much more grounded take on Batman, and he's probably not the guy for Adam West on cocaine Batman that we got, but it's what we have.
That's the beauty of it, though, right? Is I could totally see George Clooney being grounded Batman in one sense, and 66 Adam West old chum Batman. He's got the charisma to do that so well, and he's a good, serious, dramatic actor. We really lost something special when we didn't give George Clooney a chance to be a good Batman, because he could do it.
Uh-huh. And, I think as well with casting is Arnold. Arnold really could have been a great Mr. Freeze if he played it in that, not Heart of Ice, but Sub-Zero Mr. Freeze context of he came back and he's lost everything that was dear to him, so he's just gonna, take away the joy from everyone else so that they could all just be as miserable as him. And just, Mr. Freeze with clinical depression that also maliciously wants to inflict it on others so everyone feels as shitty as him. Just, I don't know, with that deadpan delivery Arnold's able to do, going back to Terminator, and just to play it as very strict and straight and robotic, but with that underlying emotion that's not quite repressed, but it's just there and it just doesn't know how to come through the surface. I think Arnold could have been a great Mr. Freeze in a more serious movie. What we've got is fucking hilarious though, and it's just a fucking joy to watch, so I don't care. I've grown to love this movie in a way I never thought I would. Again, not great. Again, really annoying. The Bane thing, yeah. Like, everything has been infected with the idea that, no, Bane's like a really skinny, weak guy, and then he bulks up. No, that's just this movie, and then everything else after it just kind of goes with it. It's kind of annoying, but here we are. The Batman cartoon did it well. So you got that. You got one for, I don't know, 7 billion. Too bad he's only in one episode.
For me, I still like this film a lot. It's close to where you had it, Ian. I've got this at number 7. Major thing, I mostly agree with all of Ian's takes on this. I think this is Batman Forever, but everyone was a little more tired. There wasn't as much passion and there wasn't that much interest in pathos. But there's still, like, kind of a cool-ass Batman, like, story idea between him and Mr. Freeze, and, like, the idea of, like, learning to let Alfred go, but, like, understanding that you can still help each other, and, like, even if the person you lost dies, you can become what Batman does, and you can still help other people as a fulfilling way to do that. Like, in terms of, like, beating the villain, this might be one of my favorite live-action versions of Batman who does that, where Clooney's just like, please, help me save him. Like, I don't know, man. I think that's a fucking kind of sick-ass Batman moment that you rarely get to see. So, all in agreement with that. The only thing I big disagree is I do think George Clooney's pretty good at this. I do think George Clooney did understand the assignment. You're completely right, Steve. His motivation for it was that, and how much he tried is up to whatever, but for my money at least, I think he's really, really funny in this, but in a really kind of cool, smooth as fuck way. And, like, if you're gonna do funny Batman, it kind of reminds me of, like, Brave and the Bold, where, like, he's just hyper competent, but he also, unlike Adam West, who's straight faced all the time, knows when to kind of wink at the camera a little bit. Like, yeah, this is pretty whack, but don't worry, I'm Batman. You know, that's kind of fun. That's kind of good to have for, like, especially like a Batman that's got a Batgirl and a Robin and kind of been in this game for a long time. This is the experience, kind of couple years under his belt Batman I like to see, who's like, yeah, this shit's kind of old and weird by now, and, like, I'm going to just emphasize Dick every time I say his name, just because it's funny to me, you know? And, like, I can respect that. I really do. But I also, like, I think Clooney's the one in all of these Schumacher-Burton franchise films that really got the dynamic with Michael Gough's Alfred. I think the scenes they have together are the ones that I really buy as Bruce and Alfred. And, like, he raised this guy, and, like, he's sad about him losing, but he's got a maturity about it. And, like, those little scenes they have together when, like, he's ill and he's taken down, he's sitting down, he's just talking about, like, was Batman even enough, all these kind of things. Like, I don't know, it's really, like, affirming stuff to me. So yes, it's a fucking crazy movie, and is it objectively good? No, but, like, I have a fun time with it. I enjoy Batman and Robin a lot.
Alrighty. I think that's fine. I don't have a ton to say about this movie. Yeah, let's just go ahead and... Oh, wait, sorry, one last thought on it. I really like that we get the one biker gang that's just the Clockwork Orange outfit. That's a neat little pull in there. Also, all the cool fucking neon makeup and, like, I love that the street gangs all apparently spend, like, several hours applying neon makeup just to go hang out on the street and then turn on black lights. Like, the amount of dedication that you have to think about going into that is just fantastic. Alright, let's go ahead and move on. Alfie, you start us off with Batman Begins.
Alright, so Batman Begins. This one's a tough one to rank. I go back and forth on, like, how much I like this a lot, how much my tastes have changed, especially after some more recent movies have covered similar grounds, and, like, how much does this hold up? But, like, I don't know, man. Every time I go back to this, and especially that first half, it kicks so much ass. Like, this is such a good fucking movie up to a point, and it doesn't become a bad movie. It never becomes a bad movie. It just becomes a less good movie. But, like, it's still pretty good, and, like, it's so... I just love that this exists. I love that there's an entire movie about Batman beginning. You know, like the behind the scenes and how much thought they put into this to get the screenplay just right. How they made the Tumblr out of like bits of kit mesh models that Nolan in his garage with Goya just kind of glued together to get the idea of what the shape would be, and then everything they built in was practical. And then when they do use CGI, it's really the first kind of onset of like, oh no, we don't need to use CGI to replace things. What if we just make the things we've shot look better? And they would never use any CGI that Nolan couldn't tell wasn't CGI, or at least he'd accept, like, okay, most people who aren't film fucking masters like me aren't gonna be able to tell this is CGI, and that's when they'd let them go. All the fucking kick-ass lines in this. Little things hold it back. Yeah, Liam Neeson probably shouldn't have been Ra's al Ghul. That's kind of a wild-ass casting choice. But it fucking sucks because, like, he's really good at it. But, like, also, you should not be touching this role. But, like, you're really fun to watch. And I like Liam Neeson fucking is Batman's master is, like, a cool-ass premise. And, like, I love getting to hear all their exchanges together. Falcone in this is really, really fun. Like, he's just that very sleazy fucking mobster. The Wayne family and like the impact on the city, like you talked about the start of this episode, Ian, where like the Barton movies didn't really feel like that was important. Like you can visually see Gotham before and after, and you buy why Batman is needed. And as much as hyper real Batman isn't what we're here for, it is also nice to see what that might look like. To see, so especially at the time period it came out, to take it so seriously while still having it be some days you can't get rid of a bomb when it comes down to it. So it's truly not that serious, but I don't know. I really like Batman Begins. I might change it, but I don't know. At the moment, I've got it at number 3 just because I really, really like this film. I like a lot of what they set up with this film. I like all of the cast dynamics. I think Christian Bale and Michael Caine are a fucking casting dynamic achievement in terms of how well they pay off each other.
Yeah, the chemistry there is amazing.
It's insanely good. You could just watch them like coyly read the phone book to each other, and it'd be the greatest movie ever made.
What was the point of all those bloody push-ups if you can't lift a log? And then just fucking
so
look
good.
he gives him.
He's like, fine, bitch, I'll lift this log.
I'll lift this log and fucking put you under it, bitch.
It's all good.
The opening scene where you
Go ahead,
back
Steve.
with a full tank.
Yeah, I'll be sure to bring it. You can borrow the rules if you like. So fucking good. So like all of this is peak Batman, but held back by God, Christopher Nolan and action with specifically martial arts choreography. Not such a good combo, huh? And also Christopher Nolan and costume design. Not such a good combo. But that's about it. Those are the main negatives I can give it.
Yeah. All right, Steve. How about you? Where are you putting Batman Begins?
This one's also really high for me. It's just a shade under where I had it. I have it at number. So right sandwiched between the two Burton movies.
You cut off literally when you said the number.
Oh, that's funny. I have it at number 4, so I have it sandwiched right between the two Burton movies. So like, pretty comparable to Alfie. I like this movie a lot. I actually just rewatched it the other day because I was just in the mood to watch a Batman movie. So I put this one on. So it's pretty fresh in my mind still. It's a weird beast because the biggest problem is the first hour is so much better than the second hour. And it's not because the second hour is bad. It's just the first hour covers ground and establishes characters and relationships that we've never seen before. So every time you watch it, it's really, really interesting. This one is also the originator of a thing that's become a thing in the comics that I don't like, which is Batman's trained by Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul in this trains him, and Nolan specifically, or Goyer really, changed the name from the League of Assassins to League of Shadows. This universe would never join an organization called the League of Assassins. That'd be dumb. And that has since infected the comics, so that there is actually a League of Shadows and a League. And Batman being trained by Ra's al Ghul is a really common thing now that I just don't like. I've always loved the original Denny O'Neil thing of like, this immortal man has just been around and Batman had no fucking idea, and he just walks in on the Batcave and is like, hey, the fuck. So I don't love that. Liam Neeson is so good in this movie, but he probably shouldn't have been Ra's al Ghul in the first place. It does lead to one of the funniest interactions of all time, which is, imagine you were a casual acquaintance of Bruce Wayne, and you just hear him go, "You're not Ra's al Ghul. I watched him die," in a party social setting, and then he just says nothing after that. That scene is really funny to me. Everything after he becomes Batman, like literally everything after Batman Begins in this movie, is just kind of fine. It's just kind of generic superhero action movie at that point, albeit done very well with practical effects and models and stuff. I do think that this movie suffers from something that his later movies have too, which is Gotham. Grounding it in a real city is thematically really important because it gets at the universality of crime that he's trying to go for. And it really helps him set the stage for The Dark Knight when he wants to basically make Heat, except Batman and Joker. But it doesn't work for me super well. The Narrows becoming a comic book thing I don't like either. Because the idea behind Gotham is that every neighborhood has Narrows. There's no, like, bad neighborhood in Gotham that's sequestered off. That's the whole city. It's such a weird idea that we've decided to just throw in the comics for no goddamn reason. So lots of little things about it bug me. The suit is terrible. It's not as bad as the Dark Knight suit, but it's really fucking bad. Christian Bale's voice in this is a lot better than it is in the later movies. Christian Bale is rough for me because him and Alfred are great. Him as Bruce Wayne is great. I don't love him in the bat suit playing Batman, which is a pretty major strike against the guy playing Batman, you know? Basically, from minute 1 to minute 55, this... and I love it up to that point. And then everything after minute 55, I'm like, alright, I can turn this off now.
Yeah, alright. Batman Begins, I have at number 2. This movie is really, really good, and I think is oddly underappreciated. Maybe it's because it's the one movie in that trilogy that starts with Batman and people seem to think about it as its own thing. I remember legitimately like having a conversation with a friend who had not seen The Dark Knight. I'm like, well, if you haven't seen it, you might as well watch Batman Begins first so you just get the full story. He's like, nah, it's not really connected in the same way. I'm like, what do you mean? It's part of the same franchise. Yeah, but like, people don't talk about them in the same way. I bet that one sucks. And I've heard people like call this movie like Borefest Begins, and I just don't get it. I don't get a lot of the hate this movie gets. You guys have both mentioned it with the Liam Neeson thing. I'll give it a pass here. I get more bothered with it with Rises and Bane, and that is like since day one. Not even since like the movie came out. Since day one of Tom Hardy is going to be Bane has bothered the fuck out of me. Here, I'm more willing to like give it because we don't necessarily know if Liam Neeson's character was always Ra's al Ghul, and it's vague enough that you can kind of make an argument for it, and it's kind of it's an interpretation I've heard and had at differing levels. Because we have Ken Watanabe is introduced in the movie as Ra's al Ghul, Ra's al Ghul, whatever. And you see him as like the leader of the League of Assassins, and you've got Liam Neeson's character posing as Ducard at that point, training Bruce. But then the next time you see Liam Neeson is in Gotham as the League is fully attacking, and the introduction his character has is, but is Ra's al Ghul immortal? Are his methods supernatural? And so you kind of got this idea that like maybe Ra's al Ghul is a title that is passed down between the leaders of the League of Assassins, and that's what makes Ra's al Ghul immortal in this continuity. And that's one where I'm like, you can at least make an argument for it. It's not great. I think that argument's pretty much undercut by the fact that fucking Bane is a British guy. 2 movies down the line. But it's an argument that I've heard, and I will like give it that much. I don't think it's a problem in and of itself. It becomes more of a problem the more that series goes on. But a lot of just the fucking attitude and just the way that this movie is shot, like, God. The scene where you guys are talking about, oh, it's kind of becomes a worse movie once he starts being Batman. I'm like, I mean, you might be onto something. I think it's less the Batman scenes and it's more like some of the other stuff. That, once that train gets here, all the pipes are gonna explode. 2 minutes later, once that train gets here, all the pipes are gonna explode. 2 minutes later, once that train... It's the same fucking thing, exposition over and over and over again. But at the same time, like, once he's Batman, I like the Tumblr chase. I like the scene in Arkham when he's trying to get Rachel out and he summons all the bats straight out of year 1. I think that scene's fucking incredible. But also the first scene of him being Batman where he's like fucking taking the guys in the docks and you know, you just got the it's a fucking horror movie. It is just a goddamn horror movie where like the guy's like looking down the trailer and just fucking disappears into the shadows. It's so fucking good. As far as the costume goes, I've never really had any strong feelings about the Bale costume one way or the other, or the Begins costume, I should say, one way or the other. It's kind of mad. I really would put it middle of the road Batman on film costume where it has to be all black. They do all this stuff about, oh, he's going to be able to turn his head more. And he really fucking can't still. So, I don't know. This is just middle of the road. I'd probably put it above the first Burton suit, maybe just under the second, and I'd probably put the Clooney and Kilmer suits below the first Burton suit. But I'd have to think about that maybe a little bit more before I commit to it. Yeah, this is my number 2.
Okay, I'm glad we both got it so high. Just a spot shy from each other, but no, I pretty much agree with everything you said, Ian. Man, good fucking film.
Yeah.
I'm glad we didn't end up doing this like a regular tier list, because then it would have just been, my number 4 is Batman Begins. Alfie, your number 3 is Batman Begins. Ian, your number 2 is Batman Begins.
Very good, yeah. Very good.
Yes, I understand how to format YouTube videos to make them interesting, so take that.
Alright, the only Batman film that ever mattered culturally and ever will, probably. The Batman film. What do y'all think about The Dark fucking Knight?
Whose turn is it? I started last time, right? So it's yours?
Steve, go ahead.
Oh, Steve? Okay.
This is my number 2. This movie is a goddamn masterpiece. Like, it's there's a difference between all the ways you can watch this movie from the perspective of being a film person, being a comic book person, from being a superhero in film person specifically, independent of being someone who likes superheroes in general. And The Dark Knight's one of those movies that transcends all of those categories and is just a masterful movie. Like, when I go through and make a list of personally what I think are the 100 greatest films of all time, Dark Knight's on there. Dark Knight is legitimately one of the greatest films ever made. It's so good. Like, it's one of those things where you almost can't broach the topic of whether or not it's good, because that's just been established. Really what you're talking about is, does it work for you personally and do you like watching it? But I think it's sort of just become one of those movies where it's like fucking Casablanca, it's like Titanic. Like, it's just a good movie. Whether or not you like it's up to you, but it is a good movie. It's Christopher Nolan's crime epic. It's him doing Heat, except it's Batman and Joker. It's structured in a really unique way where it's got more than 3 acts but not quite 5 acts. It's really fascinating how he puts everything together. It's the kind of movie where the way the tension builds is almost textbook, and every level of the filmmaking is just working on a 10 to make it happen. So, like, the action's good, the music's good, the editing's good, the pacing, the acting, like literally everything in this just top tier. Except Maggie Gyllenhaal. I'm sorry, Maggie Gyllenhaal. You're the one weakling movie. But it's such a smart and interesting movie because it immediately raises an ethical problem from Batman Begins, where at the end of Batman Begins, Bruce is like, I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you. And then this movie is all about finding out what Batman's limits are, and it's intentionally questioning, can you actually do that, though? Given what you've decided to embrace and be for the rest of your life, are you actually allowed to do that? And if you can't, then how far are you actually able to take this? It's a movie about the limits of justice. It's a movie about the limits of being an ethical person and the kinds of compromises you have to make. It's so smart about Batman's one kill rule and what exactly that leads to. And even the stuff people complain about that I used to complain about Batman just like going full on surveillance mode at the end of the movie, that's part of the movie. Part of the movie is Joker brought him down to his level. The idea there is Batman does have to compromise somewhere, and can he live with that? And how much further does he have to go to absolve himself of that and be something that everyone needs? Is he still someone to look up to after he decides that taking the fall for Harvey Dent and not being truthful about what he did is the right move? Like, it's a really, really morally gray movie, and it's just so well made. It's almost indisputable how good this movie is. It's just a matter of like what works for you personally and what doesn't. Christian Bale's voice is really bad in this one. It makes sense in a way. It's funny to see that parallel between the really well-spoken, highly articulate and enunciated Joker versus the "Where are they?" Like it's definitely on purpose. So you can't like really knock it, but it does bug me. The suit is really bad. I don't like the suit. I don't like the bike either. But those are all just personal choices. But it's number 2. It's really good. 100 greatest movies of all time. Dark Knight's on there. I don't think there is not a better made superhero movie by far, and there is very, very, very few better made movies in this century.
Alfie.
Yeah, I really feel like a broken record talking about The Dark Knight and why it's a good movie. So it's my number 2. Yeah, go watch it and you'll see why. Ian, you'll go.
Okay. So this is where I think we're gonna have the first big point of controversy in this episode. It's number 13. No, it's my number 1. The Dark Knight. I would not be a comic book fan without this movie. This movie like fully cemented a love and like kind of just an attachment to something that I'd been like missing my entire like youth, because this movie came out when I was 18, and like, you know that fucking meme about new movie comes out when I'm a teenager, let me reform my entire personality around it. It was this, and then that's the one that stuck. No, but like it's very much like a very formative movie. To this day, it is one of the best portrayals the Joker has ever gotten in anything, not just film, but like anything. The only thing that gives it any competition is the Batman cartoon show, which is pretty fucking funny. The thing that ended right before this came out. I've always loved this movie. I got to see this movie for the first time like a week early, I think, before it released, and I remember talking to some friends and being like, "No, guys, this is gonna be like the best movie of the year," and they like agreed with me instantly, and I just it really did not dawn on me how much more so it was than just of the year, of the decade. Like, it's so fucking perfect. The surveillance thing is such a weird thing that people bring up as some kind of problem with the movie, because it's not talked about like it's this fully justified, morally righteous thing, and you know, complaining about it is a problem. It's addressed in the scene that it's like very, very uncomfortable, morally ambiguous, and it's not a good thing to be doing. And the thing that I admit it's very subtle, so I understand why people miss it. But it's always bothered me that no one talks about this particular moment in the movie whenever they talk about the Batman surveillance metaphor here between Batman and George W. Bush, right? I think anyone in their rational mind would opt in to a system where it's like, okay, if you push this button on your cell phone, it will, you just push it the one time, and we will instantly be able to find, you know, someone that's about to commit a mass shooting or someone that's about to blow up like a hospital, right? I think anyone in their rational mind would probably opt in to push that button the once, right? I think you'd have to be kind of a dick to sit there and start doing the moral arguments like, no, they're about to do this right now. We need to find them right now. Please push the button. And that's the kind of the conversation that Lucius Fox and Batman have in that moment in the movie. And the thing that's, you know, okay, well, I did not sign up to spy on millions of people. So if I do this, I want you to know that your and I's working together is over after it's done. And then you get to later in the movie, and Alfred's giving a speech, or Batman's giving a speech, I don't know. And they say, sometimes people deserve to have their faith rewarded. And you see Lucius Fox walking out from the machine that Batman has built to spy on the city after he has turned it off, and it is smoking because Batman literally built it to be used one time, and he did. And like, that's, I don't know, man, the moral ambiguity of it and its connection to like the George W. Bush and later the whole fucking NSA spying program is, there's a world of difference between, can we use this one time to find this one person, and can we just do this all the time in the hopes that maybe it'll help us track down someone eventually, is like a fucking world of difference of taking something that I feel is like more of inspired by real world events as opposed to directly commenting upon real world events within a fictitious framework.
Like, it is commenting on events by presenting a scenario that is limited in its scope because it's a movie, but it's meant to apply in general. Like, the idea isn't doing it one time is different than doing it continuously, which is literally true. But the act of doing it itself, that's what the movie's saying, is that Batman had to resort to this. Whether or not he does it once, he had to resort to this. And can we forgive him for that? Should he have done that at all? And what does that say about him as the hero of the movie? And it's really gray on that stuff, and that's why it's so interesting. It's arguably more interesting than the actual ethics of spying and surveillance, which are actually pretty cut.
Yeah. No, and again, it's so fascinating to me that conversation gets brought up all the time, but no one talks about the scene that concludes the issue within the film itself, which is he literally destroys the apparatus to be able to do it. I think that's just much more, like, important to get brought up, and I never hear anyone bring that up in that conversation. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that. Outside of that, Aaron Eckhart's Harvey Dent, and I'm going to be very particular about calling him Harvey Dent, is a really, really good character, and I really, really like his fall. Aaron Eckhart's Two-Face, he needed more to do. That has been the part of this movie that has always, like, sat the least well with me. Is, yeah, he's Two-Faced, and he's running off and doing stuff, but it's just, it's not enough. He just really needed more to do in that last bit of the film. Or they should have just saved him for the next movie or something. That's been the part that's, like, but you can't do that because the ending's so fucking good. It's just, that's been the one part that's always torn me. Like, I really wish he got more to do as Two-Face. But that's just me. I don't know if anyone else has Two-Face commentary.
I like
where he is on it.
I like him a lot in this. I feel he's in there just enough. I think the Nolan movies don't delineate too much between at least when I see this version of Harvey Dent, like when you talked about him, Ian, I don't really see a moment where he becomes Two-Faced, and he's got a lot of screen time in this whole movie, so I think he has a lot to do from how I view and what it is, but like in the sense of I like Two-Face as a villain, I like his performance, it would be cool to see him do more scenes where he's doing Two-Face stuff. I do agree in that would be cool. I don't know how much that would improve anything. I think that would just be like, oh, this would be neat to see.
Fair enough. I don't know. I just never. That's been the one part. Even again, since the very beginning, I'm like, oh man, he's Two-Faced, but it's just such a limited point of the movie where he's doing Two-Face stuff, and it's like kind of a terrible plan. this doesn't hit as well for me. But that's kind of whatever. Oh, other small detail that I love about this movie, the Two-Face scene at the end takes place at 250 52nd Street, and that's hilarious. And Nolan doesn't get enough credit for putting that in the fucking movie.
They call attention to it too, and it's funny that it just doesn't come up.
No, they people. Joker gives the address out loud. Two-Face gives the address out loud. I think 2 or 3 other people say it at different points, and it's just like, yeah, no, they really just went for it, but they played it so straight that nobody noticed. It's kind of beautiful, honestly. Alrighty. Oh, is it me next? I think it's me next. Alright, so then the next film is The Dark Knight Rises. I have this one at number 4. I still really do like a lot of what's happened in this movie, but this is, I think, the beginning of a downward spiral for DC on film, where there's still a lot of good in this, but like every subsequent movie seems to have less and less good as they go on, until you get to a certain point, and then they pick up a little bit. But this one, it's still got like so much of the investment you've built into this version of Batman can kind of help carry you through with some of the bad stuff in it. For me, the bad stuff that I have a problem with is not the same bad stuff that other people have a problem with by and large. Like, I think I was the very first person to complain about Bane being a white guy, and then the rest of the internet just finally decided to catch up with me. Whereas, how did he get back to Gotham is still the dumbest fucking complaint ever, and I do not give a shit. I don't care if he fucking hitchhiked there and had to, like, tell people he was Batman to get a ride. I don't give a fuck. That part has never been fucking interesting or worthwhile to me. That seems like the dumbest, like, I don't know, what it was, splitting hairs kind of complaint. For me, it's some of the other stuff. I do have a problem with the fact that, like, he just seems to be fucking murking dudes by the end of this movie. That, to me, is a much bigger problem with this film than it is with any other version of Batman, just because this version of Batman is so specifically, I do not kill people. And it's like, but now I do. It just seems to gotta happen, and that bothered me. Yeah, so there's ups and downs with this one. I used to defend this movie like tooth and nail. Steve and I used to have epic battles that consumed universes over whether or not this was as good a movie as The Dark Knight. And I think over time I've just decided it's not, and that's okay. Dark Knight is kind of like fucking lightning in a bottle in a lot of ways. So it's almost unfair that Nolan had to do a movie to follow this up, but so much demand for this existed post The Dark Knight that you kind of had to do it. And I still like things about it. The fucking opening sequence of hijacking that plane and, like, towing it. Holy shit, that's fucking cool. There's a lot of good in this. The fact that Tom Hardy literally lifts that dude over his fucking head is pretty fucking cool. Like, I don't love Tom Hardy's Bane performance, but at the same time, it has become, like, ironically iconic. To the point that, like, that's just Harley Quinn's Bane now. is just a parody of Tom Hardy. The Lego Batman movie just does a parody of Tom Hardy. And I find it very special for that.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I have this one a little bit lower. I have it at 7. So right above Batman Forever, right under Batman 66. This is a weird kind of growing pain moment for Nolan as a director, because his biggest weakness has always been that he doesn't write very convincing dialogue. All of his characters are mouthpieces for ideas, and so a lot of the times things come out kind of clunky because they're in service to something bigger. And so his people aren't very human; they're all just kind of vehicles for things. And that's why he's so good for Batman in The Dark Knight, because the whole point of his Batman is a dude who wants to be an idea. So everyone just talks about ideas all the time. When you get past this movie, Nolan's career improves drastically, in my opinion. And when you go pre this movie, you see a lot of the stuff that he would abandon doing that I used to like a lot. But this is like smack dab in the middle, where I think he's still kind of learning what his style is. This is a 60s biblical epic in scale and in production and in runtime that he wanted to throw Batman into. This is the dude trying to get as many extras as possible, build as many sets as possible. He wanted to tell a 3-hour long epic movie about the death of Batman with a nuclear bomb, which is a thing with all of his movies. And the biggest problem with it is just his central character, Batman, doesn't have an opinion or an emotional investment or an argument against all of the other people speaking in ideas. The Dark Knight's really interesting because it's Batman having an ideology with the Joker over the soul of Gotham, personified by Harvey Dent and Rachel. That is actually an intellectual battle. Here, Batman's kind of just reactive to everything, and everything everyone throws in his face about his sacrifice in the Dark Knight and what the city should be and what he should be doing, yada yada yada, he never really has like a retort for. Like, so much of this movie is built on the idea that what they did to Harvey Dent led to the creation of the Dent Act, which shows the problem with the justice system and the problem with doing something extrajudicial like Batman. And Batman never has an opinion on that. He never says anything about that. He's never really even made aware of it in a way that seems to matter. And his sacrifice at the end is there to kind of absolve him of everything that he did that may have been less than perfect, but there's never like a deeper conversation about it, and that's where it really falters. Where I don't even care that Bane's a faux revolutionary. At the end of the day, Bane presents an argument to him, and Batman has no response. He just beats him up. And then there's just a lot of like poor incidental choices here of like the movie setting up the fact that all of Bane's men are homeless people who have gone down to the sewers to look for work, who have been oppressed by the laws created in the wake of Harvey Dent dying, who then just get beat up by a bunch of cops at the end in 2012. Like, it's not something he could have known, but it's a very poor image, and it makes Batman, it gives birth to the conversation of, is Batman a fascist? It's not what this movie is saying, but you can very clearly see, like, I can imagine someone watched and read this movie and thought, oh, Batman is a defender of the status quo, who gets the cops to beat up homeless people because he's one of the rich who are being attacked by the faux revolutionary Bane. Like, there is a reading of this movie that is very doesn't have to do a lot of work. It's a very bare bones reading of this movie that is very, very right wing, and it spawned a whole idea of Batman as right wing that I really hate. I don't love this movie. I respect a lot of things about it, but I think it does kind of just fundamentally stumble because Batman himself doesn't have anything to say in this movie. And if you're gonna follow up The Dark Knight, then he's got to have something to say, because he did so much shit in that movie that he's got to figure himself out for, and he just never does.
Okay, Alfie?
Yeah. I actually like The Dark Knight Rises quite a bit. I agree with everything you've said, but I think, and Ian knows this well about me a lot, I think The Dark Knight Rises just has such a feeling to it of, like, this is an example where I think Nolan as a director really kind of carries it, because the casting, the performances, even the screenplay, like, there's elements in there that are really good and there's elements that are really bad, but Nolan with how he shoots this and how big he makes this feel and how he went so hard with IMAX and how the soundtrack for this fucking movie goes insane. When you can list all those reasons and I'll be like, yeah, I agree. But also when Bruce climbs out of the pit, that's one of my favorite movements in cinema of all time. Like, come on. Come on, it's so good! That's a movie right there. That's why we go to the movies, for shit like that. That's a experience you can have with film. So
he makes the leap and all the bats come out of the thing.
And then the silence where it's like, what? And they all explode. It's like, oh, it's so good. It's like, it gets me so pumped. And then when Batman's coming down the street and like the suit is bad and Bane's white and you can't even understand what Christian Bale is saying, but fuck, when they just start brawling, it feels like huge. It feels epic. There's so many extras. There's so much going on. All of that stuff is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I understand everything with it. I truly do. But whenever I watch The Dark Knight Rises, it really does just feel as epic as Nolan wants it to be. So when those final credits close and we get that montage and everything that happens with it, I feel the weight of Batman's journey. I feel how much this character has changed and how the people around him's lives have changed, and all of that kind of comes together for me. So I think this movie still kind of fucking rocks, even though it's one that I'm not going to be able to justify as much as the others. So this is number 5 for me. But God, if any movie I just had to pick like a scene from to just make me feel like, oh yeah, Batman fucking kicks ass, it's going to be my number 1, and then this. I'll put on a scene of like, Batman's such a fucking cool idea for a human being to like, that we came up with this. So Dark Knight Rises, I don't know. It could have been so much better, but what we got is pretty good to me.
Alrighty. Who's starting us off with Batman v Superman?
Alright, so I have done many a conversation about Batman and Superman. And this movie, whether it's the normal cut or the ultimate cut or watched in conjunction with the Snyder Justice League or whatever, is just not good. It's just not a good movie. It's just very bad. It's bad movie. Bad movie. It's just not good. Ben Affleck as Batman is great. I love him so much. He's my second favorite live action actor to play Batman. I think he does an incredible job. You really feel for the guy going from Daredevil to bowing out of doing superhero movies, then deciding to be Batman because of kids. And then it just turns into this, and it's so sad. But there's a lot of things about it that are really interesting. I love the idea of following up Man of Steel, a movie where Superman ends the movie by killing the bad guy, by effectively writing a movie about Batman putting him on trial for this. And the irony of it is Batman has completely lost his way because the existence of Superman has essentially broken his brain, that he can't comprehend this because he's just a man. And the idea that things so insanely unimaginable exist outside of his realm is just kind of forced him to have a midlife crisis. And the idea of Superman being the one to then bring him back into the fold and making him realize that people are still good is such a good idea if it was just done well at all, and it's not. So I don't like this one very much. It is my bottom of the list. It's my number 13.
Oh wow, this is number 13. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, Batman v Superman, not a very good movie. I remember, like, because this was the era I was like, no, I'll fight anybody on the DC movies. I love them all. And I remember watching this in theater and like, no, there's a lot of good here. And there is. This is the movie that like, fucking broke me. Because I was defending Dark Knight Rises, I was defending Man of Steel for fucking years, and then I watched this in the theater, and I'm like, no, there's a lot of really good ideas here. And it took a little while after watching it, but I did just come to this place from like, That's the problem. There's a lot of really good ideas in these movies, but they're not done well. For my money, most Batman Superman stories where they are going to have to come into some kind of conflict with each other usually paints Batman as like the justified one, the one that's, you might not like him, he might be an asshole for it, but like he's the asshole that you kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of glad someone's being the asshole here. Like, your Tower of Babel is, I think, a really good comparison, where Batman has plans to take out the entire Justice League. Isn't that awful of him to do to his friends? Yeah. But he's got a good fucking point if someone should. Like, if these fucking guys could just come down and fucking rain fire and brimstone upon the entire Earth, yeah, maybe someone should have a fucking backup plan for him. This, I will give so much credit to for doing that Batman v Superman dynamic and just fully painting Batman as the irrational villain here. Of he's the reason that this is all going as wrong as it is. Like, Lex Luthor is revealed to be, like, pulling the strings and stuff, but he's not acting out of anything that's not from himself, fundamentally, Bruce, Batman here, is going about this all of his own accord and is going after Superman of his own volition, and the movie is very explicit that he's got his reasons for doing so, but he is wrong about those reasons. And I really, really love that idea. Unfortunately, it's buried under 3 hours of fucking shit. I hate this movie so much, man. It's so bad. Fucking Granny's piss jar and just... I don't understand what the fuck. And, like, it just opens itself up to so many, like, fucking memeable garbage moments. The Martha thing's been made fun of to death. Like, the fact that Doomsday looks like just a fucking aborted fetus, is so stupid. He doesn't need to be there. Doomsday did not need to be in the fucking Batman vs. Superman movie. Wonder Woman did not need to be in the Batman vs. Superman movie. Fucking Cyborg and Flash and Aquaman did not need to have internet fucking secret video appearances in the Batman v Superman movie. Batman v Superman, just as a concept, should have carried so hard, and the fact that it's 3 hours long should have gone so well. But then so much time is just wasted doing stupid shit that, like, feels so counter to the premise. I fucking hate the scene where Batman's trying to steal the kryptonite and Superman comes and stops the car chase. That's a dumb fucking scene. It doesn't even look cool. I'll fucking throw the gauntlet down. Well, at least the Batmobile looks... No. It's fucking stupid. It's garbage. The whole fucking scene, beginning to end, terrible. I fucking hate this movie so much. Alfie, talk.
I kind of agree with you, Ian. There's been a lot of redemptive takes of this from friends of mine. Shout out Alex App Batman. Is a very big Batman stan account, and he's spent almost the last 5 years trying to convince me to like this movie and writing very interesting and well-researched essays specifically on the Batman sections of things. I've watched video essays about why this is a misunderstood masterpiece. I've watched copious amounts of Zack Snyder interviews because I find him as a creative quite interesting to listen to talk, and all the behind the scenes of this film. I've gone deep dived everything. So I've seen it all. But man, it just doesn't work. Like, I'll say this, right? And people will probably come at me for this, and maybe you two will even disagree with this, right? But fucking Chris Terrio, who wrote The Rise of Skywalker, that's a far better fucking movie than this on the screenplay level.
I mean, you're right. I hate The Rise of Skywalker, but I think The Rise of Skywalker is a better movie than this.
So that's the bar you're gonna have to deal with this film. Is this was such a
when like you're in fucking dodgeball in school and you gotta like you're the team captain, you gotta like pick the last two kids. And they're both fucking terrible.
Who's the last kid getting picked? Rise of Skywalker or Batman v Superman?
That's what it comes down to, man. Coach, do I? Yes, you have to have one of them on your team. Oh man.
Just give them both to the other team. We'll be fine with a handicap.
No, don't fucking do that. You take both of them.
No, that's not fair. Give them their own team.
Sorry, Alfie. Go on.
No, it's basically, again, more things to talk about this film. I think every time you talk about this, it sounds so much more interesting than what's actually the experience of watching it. Going through the idea that a Batman who has been destroyed by his mission and cut down to the marrow, that when he experiences the events of Man of Steel and is introduced to gods for the first time, brings him a sense of hopelessness, powerlessness, and the fact that his missions meant nothing, while also immediately replacing it with, this is how I can make it mean the most important thing in human history, is a phenomenal setup to make Batman fight Superman. That is literally fucking Shakespearean in how good of a setup that is to make a mortal man try to kill God, but yet the mortal man is the god, is the one with the power, is the one with the experience and the knowledge of the world, and the god is lost and hopeless and doesn't quite know how to be himself properly, doesn't know how he fits into all of this. He just wanted to do good, and every time he does, something else goes wrong. And even as a Superman thing, Superman gets a lot of shit in this movie. The fact that he has less lines in a 3-hour movie called Batman vs. Superman than Tom Holland did in Civil War is fucking atrocious. but the conceptual setup for his arc in this, of learning that even if you do good things and bad things happen, doesn't mean you should stop doing good things. And the way to counter that guilt is by finding love and by finding solace in other people, is a really fucking good Superman lesson. It's a really good idea of, like, that's a problem he'd have to run into. It's not handled with grace, but it's a cool idea. And I will also give this movie credit for ending with Batman saying, nah, Batman fucking sucks, y'all. Superman's the GOAT. That's a pretty cool. I don't think anyone expected a Warner Brothers movie to end so definitively that Superman is fundamentally greater than Batman. So I'll give Zack Snyder some credit for that. Even though I don't think he really believes that either. I think he just thinks that sounds cooler and sounds better. But I think in his heart of hearts, he still thinks Batman's way cooler. So there's a lot going on there. Jesse Eisenberg, delete him from this entire movie. And it's an instantly better film if he's just gone. You should have had Ben Affleck as your villain of the Superman movie. That's what the pitch meeting was. It's like, oh, let's make Batman the villain. Great idea. You got a fantastic actor for that. Don't take away his fucking screen time and maneuvering to focus on the worst Jim Carrey, Heath Ledger love child you've ever laid eyes on until Jared Leto decided to try and one-up him. Like, it's really bad.
Okay. Is Batman vs. Superman's Jesse Eisenberg Joker really the worst DC performance ever when it's not even the worst performance that year?
What else was worse that year?
Jared Leto Joker! That was
right,
the same year. Imagine going to the theater in March and being like, God, Jesse Eisenberg Joker is the worst performance I've ever seen. Then going back 2 months later and being like, oh, never mind, it's Jared Leto. Imagine topping yourself that hard.
Man, 2016 was fucking wild.
It was a bad year.
Oh, I don't know, man. Fucking Batman v Superman was just like the beginning and the end for DC. And to think that, like, that movie's what, like 8 years old now? Holy shit. They've been on a rough patch ever since. Like, Man of Steel underperformed from what they wanted, but it was still like it still had a lot of good faith reception and stuff. Like, everyone was kind of talking about the Zod death thing. Fucking post Batman v Superman, DC's never really had, like, a definitive win. They've just had, no, this one was good. DC's back. You know, like, that's all it's been like.
I know you don't feel this way, but they had Joker. That was legitimately their first win since the Dark Knight trilogy is Joker.
No, I'm talking about a movie made about a DC character.
I mean, there you go, man. It's Joker. What are you gonna do?
No, a movie made about a DC character, not just a Warner Brothers movie that's titled the same thing as an existing DC character. I'm talking about a movie that they take a DC character and make a movie about them, not just make an original picture and slap some fucking name on it. But what are we talking? Oh yeah, so Justice League. All right, so I got this one at number 10. Also really bad. I've still got the controversial fucking take here that the Whedon cut is better because at least it's an actual fucking movie than whatever the fucking piece of shit Snyder cut was. I don't remember if I've said this like take in public, but no one fucking watches Geeky Gentleman anyway, so what am I gonna get canceled? Zack Snyder's daughter killing herself is literally the saddest thing ever. But man, she's done so much good for her father's career in doing so, because everyone fucking hated. I don't fucking care. Everyone and their brother was just so on board to just shit on Batman vs Superman and everything that was coming out afterwards, and every piece of news that came out about Justice League was just getting shit. Oh, it's just gonna be just bad. It's gonna be even worse than Batman v Superman. You just fucking wait. And then that tragedy happens, and Zack Snyder leaves, and the whole situation with Whedon goes down, and then like the Ray Fisher thing comes out about like all the bad acting on the set. And I mean, it shouldn't have been fucking surprising because like Whedon was already in a bit of a shitstorm when they contracted him in the first place. So like all this fucking bad faith shit starts happening, and then the Snyder fans get all on his dick about, oh, release the Snyder cut, and then they come out with this fucking piece of shit movie, and everyone acts like it's this gold standard fucking, oh, this is the one we should have gotten, oh, this is so great. It is just as bad, if not worse, than fucking BVS, and the only reason that people act like it's good is because of the story behind it that all starts with his daughter committing suicide. It's a fucking shit movie, and I'm sorry that his family went through that goddamn tragedy and that it derailed this movie coming out the way he wanted it to originally. That's terrible. And the things the studio did is also terrible. I don't give a fuck. It doesn't make it a good movie.
I just want to come out and say I really agree with that one, Ian.
That's fine. You don't have to.
That one certainly took me aback to give that not your finest moment, but
it's a spicy take. I admit. I'm comfortable getting canceled with it for all 3 fucking people that actually watch Geeky Gentleman. It's fine.
You're fine for being open with it at least, but I just want to put that out there for my sake. That oof. I don't like
these takes.
Yeah. I don't like the film Justice League in either iteration, Snyder Cut or Whedon. I think if we're talking as a better movie, the Whedon Cut is just paced and filmed like a movie, so it kind of automatically wins. I think if the Snyder Cut got released on how it was actually intended, like if it just happened uninterrupted, I think it would have been very different. I think it would have been more of actually that runtime. I don't think it would have had all these extra things. Ben Affleck did an interview recently where he just kind of admitted that Snyder just kind of pitched this to HBO as like, oh, I can get you like 4 hours of extra footage that you can put on your streaming service. Like he just wanted to put everything out there, so I don't really think that's entirely fair to judge that as a movie, but it is what they marketed as, so go ahead. it is my least favorite one, but not in the case of like, I think I do honestly think if this was edited down to be a reasonable pace and something more resembling an actual film with the ideas at play and some of the performances that we get in the Snyder Cut, I probably would like this more than Batman 89, just as like a thought experiment. I don't think it's very good, but I think that's more like I like where Affleck's Batman is taken here. I think he has an interesting arc between both versions of this film. The scene in the Whedon cut where he talks about Clark being more human than he was, I think is very open and honest. I think the scene in the Snyder cut where he jumps on the plane to head out into battle, and he just puts his arms to the side. He's like, "Faith, Alfred, faith." And I think that actually is satisfying to see in a universe where these films were good, as an arc of where we took this Batman so broken down and dejected, and then through interacting with the superheroes in the Justice League, he's found this purpose again. I do think that works better here than it does in BVS, but BVS is infinitely more well-rounded and written and more interesting. Even at its like peak best thing, I think a lot of the Snyder fans are really overestimating how much thematic weight Zack Snyder put in this one. This one was just a fun one he wanted to do. This was just the big alien beat up. Like, this one wasn't really going for anything like really big. The BVS for sure, Man of Steel, he was actually trying to make some kind of statement with those films, and actually trying to bring in politics and myth and King Arthur and all that stuff. Justice League is just the silly one. Like, it was always going to be the silly one. It's the Justice League movie. So I don't agree with the redemptive takes of this film where like the Snyder Cut is the greatest masterpiece known to man. No one involved in it wanted it to be that. They have a whole sequence where like the reactor's about to blow. It's like the most stock Power Rangers sequence like ever. Like, of course it's not that this high art cinema. So I don't rate it very highly, but I think I am more favorable to it than you two are. And I do think, just from the Batman side of things, I do think this is the closest to what Ben Affleck's Batman could have been like if he reached some of his more potential. Because I think when he's in this, and he's clearly miserable because of all the personal stuff that's happening around the time, but I think his performance is the fact that he was in the worst time of his life and he still managed to portray so hopeful, I think just shows how good of an actor Ben Affleck is. And that's my final state on that.
People give Ben Affleck shit, but that man fucking rules. I love Ben Affleck. This is my number 12, so I put this above BVS. I'm not counting the Snyder Cut because the Snyder Cut's not a movie, because it's not a cut. There's no cut in that movie whatsoever. But Justice League, the Joss Whedon Justice League, this movie is really funny. It's the funniest bad movie ever. This is my, for years after this movie's come out, this is the movie I wanted to like have a watch party with, where everyone gets drunk and watches this movie, because it's so funny. There's a scene where Batman decides he's gonna go find Aquaman, finds Aquaman with a fully grown beard. The next scene, gets on a plane and shaves the beard. This man grew a beard in like 13 hours and then shaved it off immediately. It's fucking hilarious. There's just so much stuff in it that's not good. I love that this is the movie that makes Batman seem like the most pathetic member of the Justice League, because he's just always getting his ass kicked. It's so funny. But there are moments of it that are really interesting. I like that moment with the Flash where he's like, just save one person. It clicks really, really well. The contrast between him and Superman in this one is painted a little bit better. And I like the jokes more in this, both because they're more Whedon-y, because he does this kind of humor, but also because after a contrast with like the overly serious, dour Batman versus Superman, it just kind of works. Like the trailer for BVS, where they're just like, "Tell me, do you bleed?" And then in this movie, he falls to the ground after Superman throws him, and he's like, "Yeah, something's definitely bleeding." It's just so funny. I also think it's the best Henry Cavill's ever been as Superman. Is this movie? Specifically the Whedon cut, because the scenes he refilms, CGI erased mustache notwithstanding, dude's having fun. Like the moment at the end of the movie where him and Cyborg are on the ground after the explosion on the the mother box, they're just joking about like how they're in pain, and it's kind of wholesome, and I really really like that, and I like the way this movie opens in the Whedon cut with the cell phone footage of Superman talking about hope, and it's a really good litmus test for Snyder cultists versus people who like Superman outside these movies when they say whether or not what Superman's talking about in that scene sounds like gibberish. Because if you think it sounds like gibberish, then you probably just don't. You probably don't even care about the artistic integrity of Zack Snyder either. You just want your Superman to kill people. Versus this movie, where it does kind of have a more genuine opposing take to Snyder, but both has valid takes. I like Justice League. It's very bad, but I like how bad it is. It is number 12. It will never go higher than number 12. The Batman serials, the Burton Schumacher era, everything's better than this, but it's really entertaining to watch.
Fair enough. All right. Does that put us at it? Or okay, all right. Since I know you two are just gonna fucking gush about it, we're gonna take this moment to insert and talk about. I said put one animated Batman in there. I actually had to change mine, so I'm hoping that one of you pick mine as my original one, so I get the chance to talk about it as well. But mine's the Lego Batman movie, because I like Legos and I like Batman, and it's probably like the best character arc Batman movie we've gotten, and I fucking adore that thing. It's so cool. It's great. It's a great movie. Fucking love it.
Lego Batman rules.
Yeah. What's your animated pick, boys?
For me, I'm trying to avoid the obvious ones. The one that I do quite like a lot, and I don't think most people do because of how it compares to what it's adapting, but I don't know. I still like the performance. I still like it as its own thing. Is the Dark Knight Returns movie when it's put together? Is it as good as the book? No, but I think it has its own. Being able to see those events in motion with voice acting, I think does give it a more interesting kind of edge, and I think that's one of the ones where the voice direction behind it was really phenomenal. Everyone in that cast gives such a good performance, and I really like the animation in that whole thing. I think that's a very tough style to take and animate, and I think it works a lot better when Miller's got such a unique kind of rug of ugly style that instead of trying to take a highly detailed, beautiful comic artist and then reduce it down to animation like you see with a lot of the other animated series, they find a way to take the elements of Miller and then make a cool kind of animated series vibe out of that. So I think it ends up looking better than a lot of those other DC animated movies. And as an adaptation, it's the one that I think does it the best, and it being 2 parts so you can watch them together and make a whole movie out of it, with pacing that's really kind of good, and like everything kind of works together for it. But I'd probably go for that one. There's ones I like more over time and I've suggested, and I'm sure Steve will probably pick one of the other ones, but I don't think that one gets enough love for what it is. It's not the book, but I'd still recommend watching it because I think it does a really good job.
I almost picked that one because I love Peter Weller as Batman.
It's so
I don't wanna
good.
pick yeah, it's the fact that he's just Adam West, man. It's fucking great. Because that's Dark Knight Returns. That was the point of that book. But I didn't want to pick the obvious ones. I didn't want to do Under the Red Hood, and I didn't want to do Mask of the Phantasm or Return of the Joker. So I'm just going to throw my hat in for the Batman versus Dracula.
Yes, Steve, I love you so much.
Movie goes so fucking hard, man. At the end, when he's got Dracula pinned by the sunlight machine, and Dracula's like, you're Bruce Wayne? And then he shields him with the symbol of a bat, and he's like, I'm the Batman. And then gets out of the way until he turns into dust, and then smashes his skull, and just goes, and you're dust. It's so good! It's the greatest movie of all time. I fucking love the Batman versus Dracula. No movie has ever peaked in cinema the way Batman versus Dracula has.
Thank you, Steve. That was my initial one, and then I'm like, no, I gotta make it the Lego Batman movie, but I fucking love that one too. Yes,
so good, man. It's so fucking good.
It's the closest to like comic Batman we've gotten in something, because like he cures vampirism as just a part of that movie. He just makes a cure for vampires. It's so fucking cool. Nothing does that shit. I love it. I love it so fucking much. Yes. Yes, absolutely yes. Okay. Then let's go ahead and go on to The Batman. Who wants to start on The Batman from 2022?
I feel like me and Steve have gone over this so many times of how
my
much we
God,
love
yeah.
this movie, but it's the best Batman film of all time, and quite possibly the best superhero-related movie of time, and one of the greatest movies of the year it came out. Matt Reeves just gets it. Robert Pattinson is transformative. Everything to do with how goddamn crazy this film feels to watch. The soundtrack, all these specific shots and moments that just make you feel fuck yeah, Batman. Oh my god. Throughout the whole runtime, and how much it has to say about what Batman used to be and what we've conceptually theorized Batman as, and then what it ends up with. Like, this is what Batman should be going forward. This is how we can revitalize the character. This is what this character means to so many people once you rip away all that darkness and monologuing and that. This is who he is at the end of the day. Is he's the guy who's going to hold your hand in the darkness and help you get through the pain because he's felt it too. This is my number one. It's so good. I love it.
Same, absolute number one. In my opinion, we have made a lot of movies that are inspired by a comic book character named Batman, and we've only ever made one movie that is a Batman movie, and it's this one. This movie fucking rules. I love everything about it. It's one of those things where it's a mood piece. The entire thing just puts you in a headspace. But unlike Batman Returns, where you kind of have to be ready for it, you just get sucked into this fucking movie. It just pulls you from the get-go when he's fucking monologuing, which I love so much. But then just the idea that you sell this movie on the idea of Batman saying, I'm vengeance, and the whole point of the movie is like, no, bro, you're not vengeance. You have to be something better than that. That's what people need. The fact that at the beginning he saves a dude and he's terrified of him, and at the end he's pulling people out of debris, and the person he's holding on to doesn't want to let go of him because she's scared and she wants Batman. Like, it's perfect. It's exactly what a Batman movie should be. It is a movie where Batman sees himself in the people of the city that have lost someone and aspires to put vengeance behind him so he can be something better for their sake. It's the only time we've ever made a Batman movie, and it may not be perfect, but it's a Batman movie, and that puts it ahead of everything else.
I got this one at number 5. I don't hate it. I make jokes about it a lot, but it's long, it's kind of boring, and I don't think I can ever actually get myself to watch this a second time. I don't know. I think I'm just at a very different point in my life. This probably would have been the Batman movie I wanted a long time ago, but it's just not the one I want anymore, and it just does too many of the things that I've gotten kind of tired of with Batman tropes. Like, he's just doesn't know what the fuck he's doing half the time, and it bothers me. I'm sorry, it's the dumbest fucking riddle of all time, and it takes him way too fucking long to solve. And then the fact that the climax of the movie is just Batman versus a bunch of fucking mooks still doesn't sit for me. It feels very anticlimactic. And so there's a lot of things I don't like about it. But I put it so high up on the list because I kind of have to begrudgingly admit of what it does well, it does really fucking well. And that's kind of the place that I sit with it. I'm like, is it my perfect Batman movie? Absolutely not. And I think you guys are almost in like Stockholm Syndrome the way you talk about it sometimes, because like everything about it is just like stuff. It does stuff that I know actively annoys both of you, but I think you've just hyped yourselves into loving it so much. Is kind of the reaction I've gotten from watching this movie. So one day maybe you'll join me in realizing that it was not that great all along, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. I've been wrong about stuff before, probably. Maybe.
I think it's fucking insane, dude, that you're like, it is far more likely that we will change our mind to go along with you than you will to just sit and watch it a second time to see if you change yours.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
No, maybe you'll come around one day.
That's insane, man.
Insane takes of Ian tonight.
Yeah, you gotta understand,
Jesus.
man. I've got the takes, man. I've got them. I mean, again, it's begrudgingly. I have to admit that what it does well, it does very well. I did like a lot about it. We fucking reviewed it, and I didn't sit here and just shit on it the whole fucking time. I was like, yeah, just the vibe. It's just, again, I think what this movie is going for is just not what I'm interested in seeing in a Batman movie anymore. And that's just kind of where I'm at with things. I don't know. So it's just never gonna hit for me the same way it does for you guys, I think. And again, I hate to tell you, but I know I'm not alone in not finding this movie as compelling. I've talked to people about it anecdotally, and I've run into a number of people say, I couldn't finish that. I was bored. And I think that's, certainly not the most pervasive opinion, but I have noticed it a lot about something about this
Ian,
movie isn't as gripping.
my wife says that all the time to me every time I bring it up, so I've heard that.
Yeah?
I've probably heard that more than you from. Yeah, so like I get that though, but I don't think that is something. Me and Steve never really cared about the opinions of other people anyway.
No.
So I think I get what you're saying, and I do think that's because of how this film is so hyper-wired into being a Batman film first and foremost. It's not going to be there for more people, but I like that it did that, because they're the people that do jam into that would jam into it harder. It's alienating some people to hype up the fucking weirdos who love that boring shit, which is me and Steve.
Right. I mean, like, at the end of the day, it's like this is a Batman movie about a version of Batman that Alfie and I have both always wanted to see. And I've long given up on the idea that I will ever get a Batman movie that is my Batman movie on screen. When I saw this for the first time, I immediately said, including in our review, does all of these things from all of these comics I hate. I hate Earth One. I hate the idea that Selina is Falcone's daughter. I don't like Hush. Like, there's everything it pulls from as source material outside of what Pattinson said he's read is stuff I actively dislike. And I said in my review that I'm sure there's going to come a time in like 20 years where people are going to be watching a new Batman movie and they're going to be like, this is Batman. People 20 years ago watching the Batman were insane because that movie clearly did not read any of the good comics, and they're probably going to be right. But in the moment, regardless of all of that, it's the first time I ever watched a Batman movie where I felt like I was watching my Batman on screen. The scene in the beginning, like literally if the movie stopped 10 minutes in, after Bruce has the monologue, and it was just that, I would have been set for life, man. I would have been fucking set for life after the first 10 minutes where he's like, Thursday, October 31st. City streets are clouded for the holiday. I can recite that shit verbatim. Like, it's Batman. Like, it never gets anything more primal than that. And then there's all these little things that I gush about, how, like, the way he tilts his head just slightly when the bat signal comes up, and the way that's timed, or like the way he delivers the lines where he's like, that suit's gonna get full of blood, and he's like, mine or yours. Like, there's just something about it that it's like, oh shit, like this is making me actively hyped all the time, and I can't even explain it. It hits me on a primal level.
And see, like, you talk about all that stuff, and I'm like, yeah, that's really cool. And then I'm like, squirrel suit flying Batman. You guys sit here talking shit about, like, the Bale suits, and I'm like, yeah, but then there's whatever the fuck he's wearing.
It's made infinitely better the fact that he like face plants and folds on his ass like a fucking idiot. That's what makes it good. I love that shit. If they because they don't try and play that off like it's meant to look cool. It's meant to be like, what the fuck is this fucking weirdo doing that? Oh god, he's fucking ill. I love getting to look at Batman. This movie has reverence for Batman, but also isn't so respectful to it that it's not afraid to poke fun of the insanity of Batman. I think that's a really important line to walk as a fan, where you don't become Dave Filoni, you don't get sucked into the weeds of the thing, where you can look at it objectively and then you can really highlight the strengths of it, because you're being able to still depict it with artistic merit, and you're not completely lost in the source. So that moment you just mentioned, Ian, like, I think that's perfect, because you have him falling and face planting like a fucking dumbass in a goofy looking squirrel suit. When he is being cool, it's like, oh hell yeah, he's figuring out. Like, I that shows the character that's intentional to me.
And it's also, and this is mild, but it's also, I think there's a slight age thing here, where you are slightly older than me and a little bit older than Alf, and this is 2005 My Chemical Romance Batman. Like it's for people who grew up in like 2014 listening to Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge and shit, you know, like it's that Batman. And so that's also why it hits, because I could very easily see them replacing something in the way with Welcome to the Black Parade, and it would work just fine.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. It's a boring fucking movie at times. I'd watch a fan edit again, maybe. You know, take out all the stupid shit. That's kind of where I'm at on this. This was a long episode.
It was
fun,
it was a very long episode.
Yeah, I gotta get
I'm
up
sorry,
at, like,
Alfie. You want
6
to talk
hours.
about? You want to talk about fucking 13 movies? This is what happens.
I want to talk about the actors.
Well, be more specific when you fucking write shit. I don't know what to tell you.
I guess so. All right. We wrapping up?
Yeah, everyone, thanks so much for watching. We'll figure something else out next week. I don't want to delay things even longer. These two got to get to bed. Like some losers. Some losers that like an inferior Batman movie the most. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I am the Batman for fun.
And I'm Batman too.
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.
Yo, geeky Batman.